aking palagay, dapat ang pwedeng gawin ay inspeksyonin yung mga vehicles. Kahit luma, may luma naman na maganda pa rin eh. Just because 5 years old or 10 years old, hindi na pwede. Tignan natin yung kondisyon. Kung maganda mag-alaga yung driver, maganda yung jeep niya, di pwede pang gamitin yan, safe pa naman. I'm hoping na dito sa mga initiatives na iniisip natin, makumbinsi naman natin ng mga transport groups na huwag na muna mag-strike dahil kawawa talaga ang tao at marami pang na naghihirap at hindi masalo pang maghihirap pag hindi makapasok sa trabaho.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Dani Laurel.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. The big story tonight.
Now, the scheduled transport strike next week is still a go, with some groups refusing to listen to appeals from the national government.
For its part, the Transportation Department is still seeking a dialogue in hopes of convincing operators to consolidate ahead of the deadline. Mobile journalist Francis Orsho with the report.
Several transport groups are firm in pushing ahead with their week-long strike next week. In fact, not even an appeal from the chief executive was able to convince them to back down.
Huwag na muna mag-strike dahil kawawa talaga ang tao at marami pang na naghihirap at hindi masalo pang maghihirap pag hindi makapasok sa trabaho.
The president also said that in the meantime, it may be good to just conduct inspections on traditional units to determine which ones are still fit for the road.
Tignan natin yung kondisyon. Kung maganda mag-alaga yung driver, maganda yung jeep niya, di pwede pang gamitin yan, safe pa naman.
However, the group Manibela had this to say.
Bakit po hindi ito nakita ng mas maaga? At na hindi na po sana kami umabot doon sa pagtatawag po ng tigil pasada.
The Transportation Department has since explained that June 30 is the deadline for operators to join cooperatives and not for the modernization of units. But according to some stakeholders, the process of consolidating isn't that easy. In order to form one, they would need 15 modern jeepney units. Each modern unit cost over 2 million pesos, and while the government will be shouldering at least 360,000 pesos per unit, it would mean that the cooperative will have to shoulder the rest of the expense. That's on top of other membership and consolidation fees. The DOTR has been reaching out to groups for a dialogue, but some like Manibela appear to be no longer keen on talking. The group said it's still considering whether to attend the Senate hearing on the matter.
Sa ngayon po, pinag-iisipan pa namin kasi alam namin hostage ito para sa amin.
Mobile journalist Francis Orsho, We Are One News.
The loud, colorful hunk of steel that is the Filipino jeepney has long been associated with our culture, so much so that it has invited years-long debate over whether it should be modernized. Now, here's what we know. The jeepney had its start post-World War II, with enterprising Filipinos making use of surplus American Army jeeps and turning them into informal shuttle services to revive the country's transport system back then. Historians also trace the knee in jeepney to how passengers are seated with their knees almost touching. Now, by the early 1950s, jeepneys had become a staple means of public transportation, especially in Metro Manila, where they are considered hari ng kalsada. With their bright colors, quirky accessories, and loud music, the jeepney went on to become something of a national symbol. However, it is also notorious for causing air pollution, with many units often running on ill-maintained diesel engines. Jeepneys also account for an estimated 40% of motorized trips here in the country, given their affordability compared to other means of public transport. These challenges would then pave the way for efforts to upgrade this iconic vehicle. Now, come 2017, the Duterte administration launched the PUV modernization program under the Department of Transportation, which sought to phase out jeepneys, buses, and other public utility vehicles that are at least 15 years old. And aside from the cost of upgrading, jeepney stakeholders are also concerned about the loss of a cultural icon that has been part of Filipinos' shared experience for decades now. The design of modern jeepneys nowadays have gravitated towards more of a mini bus with air conditioning, front-facing seats, and provision for cashless payments. And given all these changes, the question begs whether the modernization is backed by the law. The department order by the DOTR in 2017 stated that the modernization policy is in line with the decentralization envisioned in the Local Government Code of the Philippines. However, nothing in the Local Government Code explicitly says the need to modernize PUVs. And with the absence of an actual law on the matter, it may also be a good point of discussion on whether the President or even the Transportation Department can simply make the necessary adjustments in consideration of transport groups. Maybe then we could avert future transport strikes, help PUV drivers, and even save the iconic look of the jeepney.
Now here to discuss with us the modernization efforts for public utility vehicles is Senator Win Gatchalian. Good evening, Senator. Welcome.
Good evening, Gretchen. Good evening, Gretchen. Good evening to our listeners.
So we've heard a lot about this discussion and na-extend na po yung deadline, December 30 na po. But to avoid the same thing happening again, what do you think about how this can be a win-win situation for operators and for those who, for that need to modernize our jeepneys?
Well, Gretchen, the modernization program started in 2017. And the modernization program aimed to modernize and make our jeepneys, particularly jeepneys, more efficient. So there are benefits to the modernization. Number one is to transition the jeepneys from a much more cleaner fuel, which is Euro 4, and eventually transition it to e-vehicles or electric jeeps, which is the trend globally right now. At the same time, it will make it more efficient. The modern jeeps can carry up to 40 passengers. The current jeepneys can carry up to 20 passengers. So the aim of the modernization is quite beneficial. However, 2017 and 2023 is totally different. If the modernization, part of the modernization plan is for the jeepney drivers to pay for the modernization. But right now, gasoline prices are totally different from 2017. A liter of gasoline in diesel right now will cost you about 60 pesos per liter. In 2017, it's only as low as 30 pesos per liter. So, in other words, the take-home pay of our jeepney drivers is much lower now. And it will be a problem for them to repay the modernization program. So, I think it's just proper to delay it and re-study the business model of the modernization program.
Okay, sir, just to follow up on this modernization program, because some are worried that this is a complete replacement of what they have. Can you say that there's a possibility that we'll just look at modifications, do it in a staggered way, and make the transition a little bit easier on the jeepney drivers?
I think the bottom line here is economics, and what should be affordable for the jeepney drivers. So, if the jeepney drivers will be compelled to replace their jeeps, and they will be compelled to pay those replacement, and with the current gasoline prices right now, it's virtually impossible for them to do so. Remember, the original plan was during the time when gasoline prices were very low. At that time, it was 30 pesos per liter. But because of the Russian invasion, it went up as high as 90 pesos per liter. Some of our jeepney drivers are already crying because lugi sila. No? They're paying more for gasoline rather than taking home something for their families. So, in other words, we need to rethink whether this business model is still efficient at this present time, considering that the Russian invasion is still there, prices of gasoline is still elevated, and nobody knows when the prices of gasoline will go down to its normal level. So we really need to rethink all of these things, and that will take time. That's why the postponement of the modernization is just rational. And let's look at the economics of this program.
The bottom line issue here seems to be the cost to the jeepney owners. Is there a way to resolve this? Do you think government can possibly subsidize a huge amount to make this affordable?
No, with the current fiscal deficit right now, it's impossible for government to increase the subsidy. The subsidy ranges from 160,000 pesos to 300,000 pesos. We're talking about we're talking about 50,000 jeeps. No? So it's virtually impossible at this time for government to increase the amount of subsidy, to also increase the number of jeeps to be subsidized. At the same time, because of inflation right now, earlier it was flash, no, the balance of the 2 million will be borrowed from government financial institution. That borrowing will be paid off by the jeepney drivers themselves. You have to remember also interest rates are high right now. The Bangko Sentral just increased interest rates by 50 basis points, almost 6%. During this time, in 2017, when we were talking about cost of borrowing, it was only around 2 to 3%. So, in other words, interest payments alone has doubled in the last 1 year.
Sir, final question, no, just to clarify for our viewers here and be very clear, is this a program of the DOTR or is there a law that calls for the phase out of jeepneys in particular?
You don't need a law for a modernization program. This is a policy direction of the previous administration. Like I said, there are benefits to the modernization program. Cleaner air, more efficient transportation, route rationalization. So there are benefits, definitely. But those benefits are now overshadowed by high interest rates, high fuel costs, and low income for our jeepney drivers. So again, we have to, the situation now is wildly different compared to 2017. That's why we need to rethink, we need to run the numbers, because we cannot force the drivers to switch to modern jeeps if they cannot afford it. If you will ask them to pay interest costs plus amortization, it's virtually impossible at 6% interest rates.
Sir, if it's not through government subsidy, what other options, financial options, do you see now that can protect the interests of our small-time jeepney drivers?
Gretchen, we have very limited space right now, no? Because of interest rates are very high, because we borrowed a lot to fight the pandemic. Deficit is quite high right now. No? If you look at the debt to GDP ratio, it's about 60%. Pre-pandemic levels, the debt to GDP is only 30%. So in other words, the space to give out more subsidies has been reduced because of the pandemic. And that's another issue that we need to look at, because if government cannot increase the subsidy, then obviously it will be the drivers who will cough up more money to replace their jeeps.
Okay, so looking for a realistic situation here, no, that can protect the interests as well as provide a means for modernized transport. We'll continue the conversation with Senator Win later on in the program.
Coming right up, we'll check in on the family of John Matthew Salilig, the Adamson student who was found dead due to alleged hazing. We'll still be joined by Senator Win Gatchalian to weigh in on the matter. That when the big story returns, keep it here on One News. closing the big story here on One News. Fraternity-related violence is once again in the spotlight after the body of a missing student from Adamson University was found buried and decomposing in a pit in Imus, Cavite. The apparent cause of death, hazing. Here's what we know. At least 15 persons of interest have been identified in an alleged hazing that killed 24-year-old John Matthew Salilig. One of the suspects in the death of John Matthew told authorities that the victim received at least 70 hits in the initiation rites. After the activity, John Matthew supposedly died while on board a vehicle. His body was found on Tuesday, over a week after he was reported missing. In a statement, Adamson University said it would conduct its own investigation into the case, adding that they have also cooperated with authorities regarding the matter. The university also assured that they will not allow anything to come amiss.
And since the first recorded hazing death in the Philippines in 1954, there have been at least 40 reported hazing-related deaths in the country. Salilig's death has again brought into focus talks of amending the anti-hazing policy. It is also worth noting that of the 40-plus hazing-related deaths, 16 of which are from Tau Gamma Phi, the same fraternity that Salilig was supposed to be a part of. In the 2020s alone, there have been 4 hazing deaths linked to this fraternity. Passed in 1995, Republic Act 8049, or the anti-hazing law, regulates initiation rites and prohibits physical harm and violence against applicants. The law mandates that no hazing or initiation rites shall be allowed without prior written consent or notice, rather, to the school authorities or the head of organization 7 days before that conduct. At least 2 representatives of the school or organization must also be present during initiation to ensure that violence will not be employed. Life imprisonment will be imposed on individuals involved in initiation rites that result in death, rape, sodomy, or mutilation. Joining us tonight live via Zoom is Jeffrey Salilig, the father of John Matthew Salilig. Good evening and welcome to The Big Story, sir.
Good evening po.
Also with us, we have with us Senator Win Gatchalian, who has been, of course, pushing for that revamp of the anti-hazing law. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's simulan natin dito, no? Na-mention ba ni John Matthew, sir, yung pagsali niya sa fraternity? And if so, napagsabihan niyo ba siya about the risks ng pagsasali dito?
Good evening again. Actually, my son is already a member of this fraternity way back po dito sa Zamboanga. And for I know, gumagawa na rin sila ng mga yung community service dito in our city sa Zamboanga. So I know na he has been a member of this fraternity.
May nabanggit po ba siyang napag-iinitan po siya? Meron po ba kayong natatandaan na rason na maaaring maging dahilan? O talagang kultura po ito doon po sa fraternity na yon?
As far as I know, Gretchen, wala akong alam na meron siyang kaaway o kagalit. If you really have to look back at my son, isa siyang mabait, palabiro, matulungin, at mahilig mag-volunteer sa kahit anong mga activities, not only in dito sa Wayback Fraternity nila dito sa Zamboanga, but also in schools. Ganon siya ka-active. Wala akong alam na meron siyang kaaway. He always smiles.
Okay.
At mahal po ng mga kapatid niyan.
Yes, sir. Sir Salilig, nakausap niyo na po ba yung Adamson University regarding po sa anak ninyo, sa nangyari sa anak ninyo? And ano pong hinahanap niyong remedy or justice for the situation?
Actually, negative. Hindi ko nakausap ang officials ng Adamson, but it's my son who is there, ang pumunta diyan mismo sa Adamson with the dean and also collaborated with the legal office. So yun, meron silang pinag-usapan with regards dito sa what happened to John Matthew.
Okay, sir, alam po natin kanina nagkaroon din po ng konting pag-aresto dun po sa isang tatay daw ng person of interest dahil sa obstruction of justice. Ano po ang mensahe po ninyo sa mga, I guess, authorities, Adamson, who are conducting this investigation, also to the persons of interest, 15 po yun, napakarami po nun. Ano po ang inyong mensahe?
In any case, pag meron pong ganung mga authorities na pumupunta sa atin, in homes or somewhere else, kung hindi naman po tayo guilty, bakit po natin sila, we close doors from these authorities? So, nakakaroon ng obstruction of justice if we refuse. Pero pag wala naman tayong kasalanan, if we are not guilty of anything else, why not allow these authorities to check or search yung house natin or whatever it is?
Okay, Mr. Salilig, no, we have with us a senator on the show to ask for his input. Senator Gatchalian, in this case, how far is the responsibility area? No, is it just these 15 persons involved? Is it the entire chapter? Is it the university?
Una-una sa lahat, nakikiramay po ako kay Mr. Salilig at sa kanyang pamilya.
Thank you, Senator.
Taos-puso po akong nakikiisa po sa inyong pamilya dahil po dito sa nangyari kay John. Danny, I've been fighting hazing since 2013. And it's been a disease of our country because we tolerate it and we allow it. But after 2017, after the death of Acho Castillo, we totally revamped the anti-hazing law. We have one of the toughest anti-hazing law in the whole world. In fact, hazing per se is illegal in our country, and you can be jailed up to 40 years. And not only that, no, those who participated, those who planned, those who are present, and you didn't do anything, you can be put in jail up to 40 years. Tama po si Mr. Salilig. Under the law, those who conceal information, obstruct justice, they can be put in jail up to 20 years. So lahat po ng pwedeng gawin na may kaugnayan po sa hazing, nasa batas po to. Dahil ito po ay isa sa pinakamahigpit na batas sa buong mundo. Unfortunately, no, ito po yung nakakalungkot. Since 2017, after the law was enacted, there are about 10 hazing reported cases through the media and through the police. So in other words, even after the enactment of the law in 2018, there are 10 hazing cases that were reported. And this is just a sign that government is not doing enough in terms of implementing the law. We have the law there. In batas nandiyan ta. The law is already tough. It's comprehensive. But if you don't implement the law, nobody will respect government. And that's where we are right now. No? Government is not implementing the law to its fullest. We are not, the PNP is not apprehending the people who perpetuates hazing. At the same time, the conviction rate is also quite low. No, 10 cases after 2018. So meaning we are not convicting enough criminals who are embroiled in hazing.
What do you think is hindering the victims from getting justice here? Do you think that it's the culture, the accepted culture of hazing in the country? And with the ineffectivity of the implementation, do you agree with abolishing fraternities?
Fraternities are groups. Let's make it very clear. No, it's perfectly legal. It's enshrined in our constitution to join groups. Fraternities, sororities, clubs, athletic organizations, these are groups, and you're free to join any group. What is illegal is the act of hazing. In fact, in the law, initiation was made a little lenient. You can actually have initiation as long as initiation will not lead to hazing. But hazing as an act is illegal. And I call on the fraternities because you've shown data earlier that a lot of this hazing are perpetuated by fraternities And these fraternities are not doing enough. They're just doing lip service that they are cooperating with the authorities, they're helping government, but they're not doing enough. In fact, in the law, officers, even retired officers of the organization, fraternities for this matter, are still liable if they are proven that they have participated and planned in the hazing of an individual.
We hope this case brings justice and also becomes a precedent to a stricter implementation of the anti-hazing law and also a good look into what could be done better. Maraming salamat po, Senator Win Gatchalian, at nakikiramay po kami, Sir Jeffrey Salilig, father of John Matthew Salilig. Thank you for joining us on The Big Story.
Now, right after the break, we will bring you some updates on the oil spill that's off of the coast of Nauhan, Oriental Mindoro. That and more when The Big Story returns. Keep it here on One News.
You're still watching The Big Story here on One News.
Authorities have begun the mechanical recovery of the oil spilled in waters off of the coast of Nauhan, Oriental Mindoro. The oil spill was caused by the partial sinking on Tuesday of fuel tanker Princess Empress, which was carrying some 800,000 liters of fuel. Now, based on aerial surveillance conducted by the Coast Guard, the oil spill is now around 6 kilometers long and 4 kilometers wide. This afternoon, members of the Coast Guard, Environment Department, and Malayan Towage and Salvage Corporation boarded the tugboat Titan to conduct mechanical recovery of the oil from the tanker. And for its part, the DENR assures the public that it is monitoring any impact of the oil spill to the biodiversity and livelihood in that area. The PCG, meanwhile, noted that it has deployed more assets to control the spillage.
And before we go, the Education Department in Region 7 has reminded teaching and non-teaching personnel in basic education to be careful about what they post on social media. A teacher in Cebu City is currently under investigation after she posted a video on TikTok, which went viral, where she called out her students for allegedly cheating. DepEd 7 Director Salustiano Jimenez said that the video is under investigation. After the TikTok incident, Salustiano said the department instructed all teaching and non-teaching personnel in all divisions to refrain from posting work-related tasks on social media and other platforms.
And that's the big story tonight. And for more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. I'm Danny Laurel.
The Big Story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.